Today on Deep in the Heart of Taxes, the U.S. Senate plans to continue some of the CARES Act provisions. The U.S. Supreme Court grants the Manhattan DA his request to fast-track President Trump's tax returns, and Professor Brian Camp, over at Paul Caron's Tax Prof blog, tells us just why Section 481 of the Internal Revenue Code is so evil. You're going to want to stay tuned. Okay, howdy fellow tax nerds. Happy Monday to you. And welcome to Deep in the Heart of Taxes, the only show that takes the time to boil down all of the tax news that's fit to share. And of course, some that isn't. All so that you don't have to. I'm your host, Jack Manhire. As always, you'll find the full stories in the description below. Here are your headlines. From the New York Post, the Supreme Court grants Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance his request to fast-track President Trump's tax returns. Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr. could get his chance to try for President Trump's financial records a lot sooner after Chief Justice John Roberts on Friday granted his request to fast-track a Supreme Court ruling that Trump is not immune from criminal investigations. The Supreme Court last week dealt the president a blow when they ruled that Vance and New York prosecutors could forge ahead with their subpoena for 8 years of Trump's financial records and tax returns from his accounting firms Mazars USA. But the court punted the ultimate decision on whether to issue the subpoena to Manhattan Federal Court, where Trump's lawyers and Vance's office this week returned to continue their legal battle. Vance's office is investigating whether Trump paid hush money before the 2016 election to several women with whom he allegedly had affairs. Most Supreme Court rulings take 25 days to go into effect after the court's opinion is released, but Vance on Wednesday asked the justices to put the ruling into effect immediately, fearful that a 10-month-old subpoena issued last September could become void if it passed the statute of limitations. In his letter to the court, Vance warned that any delay could grant Trump the, quote, absolute temporary immunity that this court rejected, end quote. Vance goes on, each day that compliance with the Mazars subpoena is delayed increases the likelihood that the grand jury will not receive the documents it sought 10 months ago in a timely fashion, end quote. Now, Trump's legal team have vigorously defended the case, unsuccessfully suing Vance's office and appealing with the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit and the Supreme Court. The president's attorneys argue that the subpoena is politically motivated and it's a fishing expedition designed to harass and humiliate the president ahead of the November election. The case continues. Over at Bloomberg Tax, the headline, Senate GOP aide plan to continue some CARES Act provisions. Senate Republicans plan to unveil their opening bid for the next round of economic aid next week and will continue providing unemployment insurance subsidies, tax incentives for employers to avoid layoffs and encourage rehiring, and a new round of checks and direct payments sent by the IRS. The proposal will resemble much of the historically large aid package passed in March, known as the CARES Act, Public Law 116-136. But it isn't likely to include a new round of direct aid to state and local governments, or the full $600 per week unemployment subsidy provided by that law, according to multiple sources familiar with internal deliberations of Senate Republicans. Democrats have made aid to local governments and unemployment subsidies the major priorities for the next phase of the aid. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is a gatekeeper for what ends up in the proposal, and Senate committees and their leaders, such as Finance Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, are providing input. Quote, A number of tax relief proposals will be part of the discussion, Finance Committee spokesperson Michael Zona said in a statement Thursday. Notably absent from the expected proposal is a payroll tax cut, or a holiday, along the lines of what President Trump had insisted on as relief. Little support exists in Congress for the idea, in large part because its impact would be blunted by the millions of unemployed U.S. workers not on the payrolls. Republicans plan to include some level of unemployment subsidy and to allow more flexibility for use of remaining state aid funds provided in the CARES Act, with an estimated tens of millions of that funding still unspent. But people familiar with the drafting process don't expect new appropriations, as part of an effort to keep this new legislation within a $1 trillion, that's with a T, cap that Republicans and the White House have set. From Professor Brian Camp, over at Paul Caron's Tax Prof blog, Lessons from the Tax Court, How Evil Section 481 Forces Income Recapture. Quote from Brian, I have always struggled with basis. In the 1990s, I rented a one-bedroom condo. When my 1995 return was picked up for audit, a kindly revenue agent pointed out that one needs to exclude the proportionate value of land from depreciation, even for a condo. Who knew? The excess depreciation I had taken in the audited year was disallowed, resulting in increased gross income. But the agent did not make me recapture in the audit year the excess depreciation I had taken in prior years, some of which were closed. I would account for that, the agent explained, when I sold the condo. Now I looked up section 1016 and, sure enough, one must adjust basis by the greater of depreciation allowed, which is actually taken, or allowable, which you should have taken. Okay, lesson learned. Now, the unhappy taxpayers in the case of Gary Pinkston and Janice Pinkston, Tax Court Memo 2020-44, learned a harsher lesson. They may have to recapture over $1.1 million of prior year's excess depreciation as gross income in the year of audit. That is because Section 481, the evil section, sometimes forces taxpayers to recapture income in the audit year that was improperly omitted in prior years. Curious to know what happened next? Go to Paul Caron's Tax Prof blog and read Professor Brian Camp's full article on how evil Section 481 forces income recapture. But what do you think? Please let me know in the comments below. Let's keep the discussion going. All right, that's the show for today. If you liked it, please hit the like button, the thumbs up button, and share it on your other platforms, especially Facebook. Sharing it on other platforms, including Facebook, give us the widest possible audience. Also, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified of our future shows so that you can take part in live chats. Thanks for listening to Deep in the Heart of Taxes. I'm Jack Manhire, wishing you many happy returns.